and welcome to lesson 2 of week 12. In this lesson, we'll look at CSS counters. My name is Mildred. If we want to have something like a table of contents on the page, we want to have CSS do the automatic numbering of the table. We use counters in CSS. Now I have written a list of programming languages on the page, and I want to use counters to automatically number this list of table of contents. Now it's manageable. We can easily write 1, 2, 3, 4. But in the event where we are building a web page, where we extract subjects from the database, and we don't know the number of items that will be extracted, and we want to use CSS to automatically number to infinity, this is where this will apply. So I'm going to use a style in the head area. And for us to start using counters, we have to initialize by creating a style using the counter reset property. I want a style called table, and I'm going to use the counter reset like this, and I'm going to give it a name, let's say chapter. On my page, I have a div tag, and I'll put the class of table. This doesn't automatically put the counter. We have to create a style for the elements. So I have h3 elements holding the list. So let's say I want dot table h3, and I want to use a pseudo element of before, and I want before this, what I want is for it to increment the counter, and it should increment the counter that I created called chapter. So you can use any name here, just make sure the names are uniform. And then I want it to insert a content before it, and the content I want is to put chapter, and then you should put a space, and then I call the counter function in CSS, and within the function meant this, and then I want something like a colon and a space after that. When I save this and I refresh my page, if all is well, it should list chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. And so when I have more content, let's say I put something new here, h3, and I put PHP, close h3, save, refresh, I'll have chapter 5 automatically written. You can also have things like nested counters, like I have HTML5, and let's say I have h4 here to say introduction, and I close h4. For CSS, or let's say for JavaScript, I have h4 here to say something like React. Close h4. Then I have something like Angular. Close h4. So I will save this, refresh my page, and we'll see that the counter doesn't apply to the h4 element. We want to nest this counter so that this also will reflect here. And let's say we are going to create this style for the h4 element. So I'm going to use h4, and I'm going to put a counter reset, and I'm going to call this subchapter. Then I'm going to come back down here to say h4 before, and before the h4 I want to have counter increment, and I'm incrementing the subchapter, and I'm also putting a content that is going to read. What I want this to do is I'm going to call the counter function twice. I'm going to call the counter for chapter, so I want it to have like chapter 1 dot or hyphen, any way you want to put it. Let's say chapter 1 dot, this must be in a pair of quotes, and let's put a space, and then I want to call the counter of subchapter like this. Let's refresh to see if this works before we go further. Okay, so it works. So chapter 1 and then chapter 1.1 we have introduction. So if we don't want to have chapter before the counter here so that it can look more presentable, we want to have refresh and we'll have it 1.1 introduction, 2, 3, 3.1 React, 3.1. So this did not increment here, and we know why. So the mistake here is that this sub-chapter is supposed to be for the H3 tag, not for the H4, because this comes under the H3. So the idea here is that the H3 holds the main heading, and then the H4 holds the subheading. So we'll put subchapter for H3, and then we'll put H4 before. Let's see if this works. Refresh, and then we'll have it counting properly. So play around with this to see the rules and know how to automatically number content on the page without having to actually number them, so that when you have a large application pulling data from the database, you don't need to know beforehand the number of items that you have. You just want to have CSS automatically do this job for you without you having to worry about the correct numbering on the page. So this is where we end this lesson. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.